Hello and welcome to ADTV. Today we've come out with Phil Spinks, who's part of the AD team, to hopefully talk you through some of his best perch fishing tips and tactics. Now I know, Phil, you're pretty accustomed to a perch, you do a lot of this sort of stuff. Let's start off with location. So if you were going to turn up to somewhere and let's say you've never seen it before, what are the little sweet spots you're looking for and where would you head to?
The biggest, a lot of my stillwater perch fishing is done in the depth of the winter when it's much colder, and I find that the biggest feature is the depth of water. Rather than just sit in a swim because the tree in the margin looks really nice, I find the perch will follow the baitfish, and the baitfish will shoal up in the deepest area of the lake.
So you actually even just say that quickly there, you've taught me something, because I would initially head straight to a snag or a tree, but actually you'd prefer to find a deep hole where perhaps the baitfish would go as well.
Yeah, they'll definitely be following the baitfish round, and I've done so well on a lot of little waters just fishing. It almost looks as if I'm just closing my eyes and casting it in the middle of the lake, but you look at it, you wouldn't think there's a feature, but there is a feature. It's underneath the
yeah, exactly.
surface.
It makes perfect sense, like a whole food chain going on. The shoalfish, they go up, perch in there, grabbing them.
Yeah,
whole lot's going on.
Those perch haven't got big eating maggots and worms and things. They've got big eating little fish, and that's why a lot of these little commercial fisheries. I mean, if we catapult maggots in here, the water boils with silverfish, right. And that's what they like to have for lunch. That's what they're
cool. So once you found that spot and you found perhaps a deep hole, like you were saying, the ultimate spot perhaps being a deep hole near a snag, what would you then target with tactic wise? I know you've chosen to fish the float today. Is that because you feel it's the best, or just that's what you like doing?
I quite often know a situation, if I put two rods out ledgering, I'll get more chances, but it's really nice to do float fishing when you can. You
just watch it go away then.
Yeah, it's those childhood memories of just watching a float slide away, and a big perch really does pull back, and on a nice soft float rod it's just good fun.
So float fishing today, but you would also quite happily sit there with perhaps a couple of ledgered rods.
Yeah, I suppose if I was targeting a single big fish somewhere, then I'd want to use the most effective method. But when I just want to do some perch fishing and perhaps get one or two nice ones, it's really nice to get the float rod out and enjoy some float fishing.
It is, isn't it? And it's worth mentioning, when you are fishing either the float or on the ledger tactics, you keep it really free running, don't you? That's the way they feed. You just think that helps?
I think more so on the still waters as well. I think any resistance that they feel, they'll quite quickly drop your bait. They just don't like it. If I'm ledgering, it's very much like pike dead baiting. I'll have the bail arms open and I'll fish drop off indicators, so as soon as they move off with the bait, line comes off the spool and they don't feel anything. If you close the bail arm and put a bait runner on, they quite often move 6 inches, a foot along the bottom where they feel that something's wrong and drop it.
I've actually had that myself, where you get sort of a real sharp burst and then stops. You probably think they've felt something and then they've let it go because it's not quite right.
Yeah. I've had the odd water on very windy days, which probably hasn't seen much pressure from other anglers, where I could just put them on a rod rest and put the bait runner on, and it'd be almost like a barbel bite. It'll just tick off. But if you fished that for a winter and went back the next winter, they'd probably soon wise up to the angling pressure, and you'd have to move the goalposts a little bit.
To try and match it, try and get that. So then once you've found your area and you've picked the right tactic, what are the key baits you'd use? What would you take if you had to catch a perch?
If I had to catch a perch, little mini live baits take some beating, but I appreciate not everyone likes live baiting and not every fishery lets you do it. But the problem with a lot of these fisheries, they'll be stuffed full of carp and other fish, and using worms and things, you sometimes get pestered by other fish. But the king prawns are probably a close second for stillwater fishing. They're very selective about the size of perch that pick them up, and the other thing, you haven't got to worry about catching bait. You can just go to the supermarket,
grab that. I noticed you fishing them today. So are you fishing with the cooked ones or the uncooked ones?
I always use the raw prawns. I know some people use cooked prawns and catch on the cooked prawns, but the first time I ever tried them, I probably out of ignorance I picked up the raw prawns, and I've caught scores and scores of fish and several sort of well over £3 on them, so I was just confidence is in them, so I keep using them.
Excellent. So you got your prawns, your worms, and then if it allows, perhaps a bit of live baiting. They're sort of your three that you do. Yeah,
definitely. Another one that you can try is fresh small dead fish are very good. If you're getting pestered by carp and other fish, that can be quite selective. Just like mini piking, like tiny little dead baits on running rigs with drop-off indicators.
And I noticed what you were doing a bit of fishing earlier before we got, and you catapulted maggots over the top of where you're fishing with prawns or worms. So is that to try and drum some interest into the swim, or?
Yeah, that does two things. It attracts the silverfish into the swim,
Right.
which hopefully the perch will be following the silverfish in to eat them. And any maggots that get to the bottom of the swim, the perch eat maggots as well. So, you know, you're killing two birds with one stone.
So that all gets that all competing. Perch come in, big prawn there.
Yeah. I think if you've got almost like a ball of baitfish feeding on the maggots, I think that draws the attention of the perch. That bring, you know, they come in to investigate and have a munch, hopefully.
So a little bit of technical stuff with how you're hooking your baits. If you're hooking your prawn or your worm, are you hair rigging them? Are you just sort of nicking them through?
If I'm ledgering them on the bottom and fishing them on bite alarms, I'm generally casting them a little bit further like that as well. So I use the Corum quick stops on a hair rig.
Right.
It's just so easy just to push through the prawn, and they don't come off. But for float fishing, which is generally closer in, they've got a very sort of thin membrane on them, like a skin. And just by hooking it through that skin, they hold on quite well. You can sort of do an overhead lob with them, and they generally stay on.
And you're using a relatively big hook, because they are quite aggressive feet. When they grab it, they just sort of engulf it, don't they?
Yeah,
so
they're
quite
not
a big hook, show a lot of hook.
Although they don't like a lot of resistance, the initial time when they pick the bait up, they just swallow it. You know, they just flare the gills, and the whole lot is in their mouth. They don't mess about picking at it. They just inhale it. So yeah, they've got quite a big mouth. A 3 pound perch has probably got a mouth about the size of a 30 pound carp.
Yeah, so surprising, isn't it?
You,
so
you haven't got to worry about the size of your bait.
As long as you've got a big hook and quite a big bait, you should be selecting perhaps the bigger fish, if that's what you're after.
If you want a day's perch fishing and you want to get lots of perch, then worms are probably your best bet. But I'm probably a bit greedy, and I want to catch the bigger ones, so I'm sort of targeting sort of 2 pound and above when I come to the water.
Yeah, try and get them real big.
Those prawns generally do help with that.
And then lastly, before I let you get back fishing, hopefully you're going to show us a fish. If you were going to pick the days to go on, I know you can't always because of work, but
yeah,
what are you looking for? So I know when we got here this morning, it's bright and sunny. And I even mentioned with my limited knowledge that perhaps this isn't the day to do it. It's overcast now, but
yeah,
is that what you want, an overcast day?
Yeah, you want overcast and not quite like windy days as well. Right. The kiss of death would be clear blue skies, bright sunshine, and just stillness. They will feed on those days, but they'll normally wait until the very last knock-ins, the last hour of light, and they normally feed really, really well, because they haven't fed all day long, and then suddenly the light values drop and they come on the feed, and you can catch nothing all day and be banging your head against the wall, and then just as the light drops, you'll get bite after bite, and then it's all over as quick as it started.
It's almost like they weren't there, but they were. It's just they need that light to drop.
Yeah.
And then they really. And is that the same for the mornings? Does that work just as well?
I've had a few good early mornings. Yeah. The first thing in the morning can be pretty good. It's a bit frustrating in the morning sometimes. You're getting bites as soon as you start, and you think this is really good, but you can see the sun creeping up behind the tree.
Watching, I take it, until you think that's it, done.
I'm not saying that you wouldn't catch a perch in the middle of a bright day. But if you want to put the odds in your favour, then if you're lucky enough to choose your days, you can go when it's overcast and windy. If the conditions seem too bright, then just do a short evening session. It can be just as productive as sitting there all day.
Yeah, I personally, like you said, I'd rather be somewhere, the right place at the right time for an hour, rather than spending my whole day there.
Yeah,
for not a lot of raw.
And if you've been there, sometimes you're there all day and it's not happening, so it comes 5 o'clock and you think, I've had enough, this is boring. But if you get down there, you're mega keen last knock-ins, you probably do a lot better.
Cool. Well, Phil, I knew you'd be the man to bring out perch fishing. 2 fish here, both over 2 pound, plus that one earlier, putting everything that we discussed into practice. And it is worth mentioning, you were spot on. As soon as a bit of rain come and the clouds come in, the perch started feeding. So if this doesn't inspire you to get out perch fishing, I don't know what will.